It's sending. I just haven't hit go live. All right. There it is. Let's see. Okay. It should be live now. Angelica, can you confirm?
I can confirm.
Yes. All right. There we go. We are live. Perfect. Let me see. Okay. Hello all. Please ask questions here and go for Slack. Cool. I see. Okay, perfect. It looks like people are chiming in. That's good. So I guess we'll give a few minutes before we start. What do you think, Angelica?
Yeah, let's give it till maybe 5 past and then we'll dive in.
Sounds good. Okay. This is great.
In the meantime, we'll just let people filter in.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hello, Earthlings. Oh, we have someone from a different planet. That's exciting.
Nice. Oh, well, it's probably a good time to share the Go for Slack link just in case they don't have Slack up there. Just,
yeah.
Let's see. Oh, more. I feel like sharing a Slack channel is always the hardest thing for me to do. Why? Why is that?
Sorry?
I said sharing a Slack channel is always difficult. Like I could never just find the link and share it.
I think we should like save it in our bookmarks or something so that we can easily share.
Yes. All right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Well, sorry. Oh, okay, people are chiming in. We got 11 folks on, so that's good. We got a few more minutes to start because
maybe we start at like 8 past or 10 past.
So let's start at 1:10. Just give it some time.
1:10. Yes. Deal.
1:10. Perfect.
Effective negotiation, Wilken.
I love it.
We'll start at 10 past.
There you go.
Gonna like resend the same question over and over again so that people know where to go for questions. Also, I find it super trippy the fact that YouTube is behind us and therefore like I hear myself say something and I see myself say something on Zoom and then I look at the live stream and then I see myself say it. It's really weird.
It is. But that's good.
But I'm happy. Once we get started, I will not look at the YouTube stream or it'll be too trippy for me.
Yeah. What I do is I usually just keep it in the background, paused.
Yeah.
So this way it's there and I can see it and then I can, see all the comments come through and
maybe.
See copy link address. So we go. I hope I don't miss much. All right, this is good. Okay. Yep. Perfect. Yeah. And the stream is being recorded. So if you want to catch up from it, you can always rewind and start from the beginning, and then it should take, and then up until the point it goes live. So everything here will be recorded. So don't worry about missing anything. It's
Yeah.
we love doing these things nice and long so people can chime in and pop in and out anytime they
Yeah.
want.
And then
So-
early next week, we'll have both the full recording of the event and the individual talks up on our YouTube channel. So you will be able to kind of just watch the individual talks as well. You don't have to watch the whole event again unless you'd like to. We welcome that as well.
Yes.
I'll give it another
And-
3 minutes.
For those folks just joining in, we're going to start at 1:10. So just giving people time to trickle in and so
I guess the calm before the storm of amazing, wonderful women and their knowledge. I'm like bracing myself. I'm very excited.
That's great. It's great. I love it. Love it.
This is the part that I find the most difficult because I'm like raring to go and I'm like
Just
at
wait.
the edge
Oh,
of my seat.
yeah. I feel like last time we started exactly at 1. I don't even know how many people were on when we started. We just was like, all right, we're gonna start. No waiting. And now it's like,
We've learned just
Yes.
let's chill our beans. Just make sure people
Exactly.
trickle in. They have all the info. They have to go to Slack info before we dive in.
should I hit record now? I feel like now that I no longer have to record, I never forget to like hit. I'm always like,
Hit
I don't need to hit it anymore.
Well, yeah. Yeah, contextually, Wilken previously continually forgot to record these sessions.
Yes, even though it said, don't forget to
It
record, very
became-
big.
Yeah. It became somewhat of an ongoing joke where we would remind each other and then when the actual event would happen, we'd get too excited and forget.
Well, thanks to live streaming, we don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's good. Okay.
1
All right,
minute
we'll give it
away. The countdown
1 minute.
begins. I feel like I should be the one in Miami. I'm feeling very like sun drenched.
You ever, not too far. It's a really short drive. So I mean, it's not a short drive, short flight. So if you want to come through,
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I see the sun. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's that sun you want to actually make it in New York next month.
It should be.
To it.
I mean, the weather's looking up.
Yeah,
I'm actually
so
thinking of putting my AC in sometime soon, which is very exciting.
nice. Those are the days.
Yeah.
You don't
I'm
go
excited
outside.
about it. My back is not excited about the prospect of trying to put an AC in the window, but we'll see how that goes. It's worth it from the cool breeze.
Yeah, it'll pay off. You get to sit back and rest the back in the nice cool breeze. So it's all good. It's a win-win.
For sure.
Yes. All right. So it's showtime, Angelica.
Showtime. Right. Cool. So hello everyone. Very excited to have you here at our 3rd GDN event. For those of you who haven't tuned into our previous ones, I am Angelica Hill. I'm going to be one of your 2 co-hosts today. We're extremely excited for this event. You're going to hear from a range of different wonderful women across the Go community, as well as across the world. They'll be speaking about a range of different topics from best practices for log aggregation and centralization, testing, crypto fails and how to tackle them in Go, as well as more information about how they got into technology and what they're working on now. I'm joined, as I say, as always, by my wonderful co-host Wilken, who's going to tell you a little bit about the GDN and how you can get involved in these kind of events.
Awesome. Thank you, Angelica. I feel it's always great getting introduced by you. So thank you. Happy to be here. Hello, everyone. Hello, world. I'm really excited to be doing this 3rd event. As Angelica said, we have a great lineup. So please feel free to join us in Go for Slack. And also you can leave questions in the YouTube channel, which we'll be reading after our talks. So for those that are here for the first time, welcome. We're really happy to have you here. For those that have been joining us for the 3rd time, welcome and thank you. These events wouldn't be anything without you. So thanks again to you, the attendees, and to all our speakers for joining in. A quick little blurb about the GDN. Stands for the Go Developer Network. It was an organization sort of started between GoBridge and Google. as a way of, or collaborative sort of organization as a way of promoting, the Go community and encouraging folks to be involved. And we provide services like meetups, resources for any groups or local groups that want to start meetups that haven't gotten started yet. If necessary, we can talk about how we can assist with setting up training and workshops in your local areas, and also mentorship and just all around great people to reach out to. Consider us part of your network, your friends. If you want to hit us up, you're looking to get started and not sure where to start, the GDN is a good place. We do our best to promote, all of the meetups that are going on around the world. So if if you're catching this just for a short period of time, you're like, I really wish there was others. Again, reach out. We'll be happy to point you in the direction to your local meetups and any other resources your way. If you want to get involved, we could use help in organizing events, putting out the good word to our folks and just helping each other grow. If you want to get involved, reach out to myself or Angelica. You can hit us up on Gopher Slack, or I'll share our emails later. There's also Bill Kennedy, but we're available, so please do reach out. Before we get into our first round of talks, our first speaker, just a quick overview of the logistics. One, we follow the Go Code of Conduct. So please, if you're joining us today, we ask that you be kind and be respectful to all of our attendees and our speakers within your comments. And please be patient if there's any technical difficulties. We're all trying our best here. And then for the comments and questions, we're tracking them within Gopher Slack. We shared the link within the YouTube channel for those joining us on from YouTube, and we're also taking questions directly from YouTube. So please feel free to post them there. We're gonna go through the threads after the talk and read the questions out loud. If you find yourself wanting to ask a question and not feeling comfortable asking it directly in YouTube or in the Glorious Go Girls channel, feel free to ping me or Angelica directly. Happy to share that question for you. And without further ado, we'll go into our talks. Again, thank you, everyone. All right, so it looks like it's coming right back to me, huh? So awesome. Well, I have the great pleasure of introducing our first speaker today, Diana Ortega. She's a software developer at Publicis Sapient in France. In this talk, Diana will show some techniques to produce logs, aggregate them using a log aggregation system, and then use dashboards to analyze those logs. Diana, if you can hear me, can you please unmute and say hello to the world?
Hello. Yeah, I'm just looking for the right button. Yeah. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling today? Lovely background. How are you feeling?
Yeah, this is quite difficult. It's my first time, I think, in this kind of format. Is quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like you have no one to kind of get feedback from. But you'll be happy to know Angelica and I are here. So if you feel like you need anything, feel free to ping us. Good luck.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about some practice for log aggregation and centralization. My name is Diana Ortega. I am a software developer at Publicis France, and I work as a consultant in my company. I am also the co-organizer of the Women Who Go Paris meetup. I would like to share with you some practice to centralize logs for helping you to better exploit them. Those are some practices that I have found or not in some projects I have working. And I would like to share with you the things I feel are important when developing your application. Even if those are basic things, sometimes we just forget them. I think it's important to remember. For doing that, I have organized this talk in 3 sections. I'm going to talk about context. Then I'm going to talk about how to generate and write logs. I'm going to finish with a demo. It's a long demo, so Well, let's start. I want to speak about observability because when you are writing an application, it doesn't matter the language. You want to debug and know how it's going. That is why observability is important. Is being able to debug my system, is having the tools or solutions that allows my teams to debug the system. Observability is based on 3 pillars: log centralization, metrics, and tracing. This talk is going to be focused in log centralization. Log centralization is logging a solved problem. Well, if you are in a standalone application, you write in a file the log you want, and then if you want to access your log, you use the tail command. That's it. That's enough. But today it's more common to write distributed applications or applications that works in isolated context. I'm going to call this isolated context containers. When I talk about containers, I'm not talking about Docker containers necessarily. I'm just talking about the definition of a container is a process, as an isolated process. Then when we work with containers, applications in containers, we can do the things the same way we did before, because those containers may not have a permanent store. Then I have to think about transfer logs elsewhere. Maybe they are not accessible from a network address. So I need to think how to push logs from this container. Those containers are executed in machines, but there are not fixed mapping between the machine that is executing a container and the kind of container is executing. So I need to have some kind of tag for the logs my applications are producing. So how do engineering has solved this problem? Sorry, I have lag. Okay. Yeah, that's what engineer. There are 4 ways of solving this kind of problem. I can have my application in the container, and if the container allows, I can share a volume, for example, Docker allows, and after that have some kind of a log collector that is going to read these logs and sending to a more centralized system. I can have the container, instead of the application, write the logs in a file. Maybe it's the container who is writing the logs in a file. And then the log collector system is going to send them in another centralizing system. This is the most common way to solve this problem today. And there are other ways to do that. For example, the container, the application sends the log directly to the log collector or the centralized system, or the container sends directly the logs to the local collector. So the most used solution is this one. We have applications that write logs. We have a log collector that sends the logs to a log centralization system, and then we request these logs and there are a lot of tools that allows me to do that. The most common tools used today is, for example, having a Fluentd or Logstash or Promptail for log collection. If you have worked with Prometheus, for example, you know what Prometheus is, or with logs, already log stash. It's a system that allows me to pre-process and collect those logs, then send them to a centralized system. This is some kind of database, for example, Loki or Elasticsearch. And then I can read those logs, or request those logs using Grafana or Kibana. But before, we know where we are going to send those logs. We know we have to write those logs in a file. Now, how are we going to write those logs? For knowing that, I would like to see which one is, how is the anatomy of a log line. I should be able, I have the centralized system, I have my log in some kind of database, and when I have a problem, I need to be able to find the log, a log line that is going to help me to debug my system, and I should be able to interpret this log line and maybe have this log line in a specific context to help me interpret it. The logs are in a central system, so I need to find a way to be able to query the logs, to put them in a context, and that's why I need to structure my logs. For example, here you can see a log line. There was an error in line method wrong argument. As you see, log is a string. It has diverse information. For example, a name, process ID, and user and host, etc. We have one information per line. And when we are talking about logs, logs are a stream of lines. They don't have a specific start or end. I mean, if the application is running, it is producing logs. It's producing logs. So how do I structure this log line? We can have additional information about this log line. For example, the host where the application is running. I would like to know if this line, this log is for an error, it's just info, it's just something to help me debug. So it's a level. The line, a method, and a message. For me for helping me to be able to read these logs, I can add some labels. For example, here I have a host, level, method, and message. This is a log.fmt format. And if I, for example, parsing it using some kind of machine or process, I just can transform it in a Gcm format, and it's quite simple to do that once we have a structure for my log. Well, we have my structure log. Then how do I write those logs? If you are writing a 12-factor application, they say, okay, find something standard to write the logs. Logs are a string, and the most standard thing to write strings of a string is the stdout or stdr. Sometimes it's not, when we are talking about microservice systems, maybe they are polyglot, so we have different languages. So that's why it's important to have something standard. Sometimes the std out or std is not possible, not the standard, and we need to write logs to a file. So I would like to be able to change the output of my log just in configuration, because my application never should be concerned itself where is the log being root. It's just I just in my application as developer, I just want to write the message, and if it goes to a file, or if it goes to the standard output, I don't want to know that. So I'm going to show you some tests, some demos, and I'm going to use this stack I have installed in my local machine. I have Promptail. As I say, if you have worked with Prometheus, maybe you know it. It's a tool that allows you to take, in this case, logs and send them to Loki. Loki, I'm going to use as the system of log centralization. Is something like Elasticsearch, but with the difference that it just it doesn't index all the text. It just index the labels, the tags, and I have all the text of my logs, and Grafana for showing you how it's going to do. So I'm going to start the demo, and I would like to have a feedback. Do you see my code? I don't think so.
I don't see code yet. I just see someone on the running on the log.
Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing the screen because I just going to share the code. I don't know how to share everything. Maybe over here. That's it. Here I have some examples. I'm going to start with the easiest one. When we are going to start to write a Go application, and I need to log, I use the standard library for the log, println, log. If I execute this, no, sorry. I see it prints the message in the standard output, and it adds a date and the message, a date and a message. If my container, if I need to use a file, what should I do if I want to use the standard way? I need to create a file for writing my logs. I need to create a writer, and then I can't start logging. If I create a login info, for example, that is a new sorry, little minute. I'm so sorry. Technical problem. Okay, I think this is the one. This is the good one. Okay, yeah. If I want to create the log, I just create a new log. I send the writer. I can add some information, some prefix, and print the log. If I do that, I'm going to write to this file, the log. Yeah, I have already some tests. Yeah, I have my log. It's okay, but it's not format. And if I want to format my logs, I have to go further. Maybe see I wrap my log. I can create, for example, some kind of a struct to handle the level, maybe handle the process ID, the application ID that is going to help me to identify which execution is I'm logging and the message. And I can write some kind of wrapper, of function that is going to print in the format I want, and I can add the level of my log if I'm using this function. If I use the log I have just created, you see I have some kind of a structured log with level, the structure I used to create process ID and message, and a date. Just writing in the standard output, but I could go further and make the configuration for writing in a file and so on. But it starts to be a lot of code for me. I just want to change my log, my way of logging, just using some kind of configuration. I don't want to write by myself a framework log, because if I have a lot of process, I have a lot of things to think about. For example, if I'm writing in a file, the log of the file, if I'm going to write in bash, how I'm going to synchronize. There are a lot of things I don't want to think about when I just want to develop my core application that is I don't know, a web application. I don't know. Very used library, Logrus. Maybe it allows me go further. Logrus is a cool library. It allows me to change the format of my logs. For example, I'm going to change the format to write JSON. But if I want to write to a file or to the standard output, I need to change the writer. For example, here I have a multi-writer to write in the standard output and in the file at the same time. If I run this, I have my file logros, and I have all my logs format. I have some info and some error logs. I'm going to see if I'm able to centralize those logs. So as I say, I use the prompt tape. I have here my configuration, my prompt tape configuration. It allows me to pre-process the logs. I can add tags. For example, for log keys are labels. I'm adding tag job backlogs. I use this as it. The path where I'm looking for the logs, everything ending by log. As I have an unstructured output, it's a JSON output, I can add some label from this output, the label and the application ID. So if I show you the Grafana, I'm just going to browse for my logs, everything that is a backlog, and I'm going to, those are some tests I have done. And I say, well, here we have all the logs that I have done, but I can handle the last 5 minutes we have here, the last log I did. info, classified by info, and error, the two levels I add in my configuration. But this is something that is still very, if I stay with Logos, this is something that is still very manual to do. And there are better things to help me handling the log. This is a good library. This is a very good library, but I need to go further. We have libraries like SAP, Serolog, that goes even further. They help me to just change using some kind of configuration, the output and the tags, the things I'm sending as contextual information to my logs. That's great because it's less things for me to worry about, and it's just configuration to change. If I use this configuration that I have here, just sending to the std out and std stdr the error logs, and to this file. This here, and we have the logs. As it is writing here in the log file, it should be centralize all these logs. If I just can show you. I can change, for example, the application ID, filter for my application ID. The last application ID was this one. Just to see those logs I'm interested in. Sorry. You see nothing here. This was the F5. And with the FNF, this one. I see show logs, and those logs, yeah, are those logs that I have here. I have here the message. And that's great. I have something that helped me to centralize, to structure my logs, and that helped. I have something else that helped me to centralize my logs. But there are also, for example, for Loki and Promptate, there are some libraries that help me to push my logs directives in the centralization system. I'm just going to see how it works. It's also configuration. It allows me to configure where my logs are being sent. For example, for the info level, I'm going to send them. I'm going to print only the error and the info. On the debug, I'm not going to do anything about that. But the most important thing is just configuration. Just configuration. I don't have a file because I don't need. I'm going to send them directly to my log centralization. If I run that, I should be able to see my logs. Yeah, and I should be able. Server, because I'm printing error, and I should be able to see those logs in my centralization system. I don't know if you see this screen, but it's quite. I just forget which application ID was that, but it doesn't matter. You can trust on me; they are sent. They are not very, very, very well structured, but they are doing what I'm telling him to do. This is okay, but this has some disadvantages. For example, I'm locked with locking on Promtate. And as I say at the beginning, it's the same thing about the file. I don't want to be worried about where I'm going to send the lock. Maybe it's an option. Maybe some applications need to do that. Maybe it's for some projects it could work. But if you want to stay standard, it's better to just to stay standard. As I had 20 minutes, I think that's all for me. Those are the demo or the demos I wanted to show you. I have the simple look that it does the work to write in the standard output, but I need to wrap and create a structs to start formatting. I need to code more for having something more structured. With Locros, it allows me to structure, but if I need to change the output, it's going to be a little more tricky. SAP or Serolog or frameworks more advanced, I think it's a good frameworks. If you need to change the output type, if you need to log something more, more sophisticated way, if you are worried about if you need to log in batch or about performance or something like that, it's a good it's a good frameworks. They are good frameworks. If you have a Promtate, it's okay. If you know that you are going to send all the time, if you're not going to change your logs system. And takeaway, it's important to structure your logs. You should add contextual information to your logs. For example, the application ID, the log level, log to the standard output if possible. When you write when you are logging, if you need to make a configuration for each log line, it's better to make some kind of encapsulation and develop yourself your framework or use something existing. And use a log system that allows you to handle the output and the format, just changing the configuration is the most efficient way to handle your logs. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. I think great talk. I like the progression from simple to structure, then going into the overall aggregation. So I think great job. There's a few questions that came up in the Gopher Slack, but I think we have time for one at the moment. And that question was, any advice or on an approach for redacting sensitive information from your logs?
For sorry, I didn't get it. For hiding sensitive information?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, in my what have I done is having anyway a structure for my logs and trying to hide. I mean, I have a structure where I have the information I want to log, for example, the user ID and something like that. And anyway, I have something in the middle. I haven't found anything that does that automatically. Anyway, I have I have need to write the code for doing that.
All right. So to confirm, you haven't found a clear way of doing that automatically. So you sort of take you take a custom approach for stripping out the data from the logs.
That's it.
Great, perfect, thank you. So I'm going to, there's two more questions in the Gopher Slack. I'm going to leave them there for you if you have a moment to go back and answer them, that would be great. If not, we can answer them after. I'm going to hand the mic over back to Angelica to kind of kick things off from there. But Diana, thank you so much for joining us for your talk. Please stick around for the rest of the event.
Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. So I have the pleasure of introducing our next wonderful speaker, Anna Catalina Whitaker, who's a PhD student at the, excuse my pronunciation, Technische Universität Darmstadt. So in this talk, Anna will introduce and explain 6 very frequently discussed problems for insecure crypto usages and demonstrate secure solutions for common use cases. So very excited to have you. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks for having me. You should see my slides now, correct?
Yes, I see him.
Great. Today I will talk about, first, thanks for introducing me and having me today here. I'm very pleasure to be here. And today I will talk a bit about some crypto fails and how Go can help you tackle them. So who am I? As Angela introduced to you already, my name is Anna Katharina Wickert, and I work currently as a PhD student at the Technische Universität in Darmstadt. And I'm in this community, or partly because I also organize a local chapter of the Go user group in Frankfurt. That's in the middle of Germany. You can also find me on Twitter. So what is this talk about? So first, I will introduce a bit the motivation why you should care about crypto. Then I will show you 6 common misuses in the wild. Then I ask myself the question, because they're in Go and Java, can we repeat all of them in Go with the standard library? And then I will shortly show you 2 secure code examples. So you probably all have heard about crypto fails, and if not, I will show you now 2 examples. In December 2000, there was a security notification for Schneider Electric for the car charging station, and you could attack them because they hard-coded their credential. You can imagine a hard-coded credential like putting your key on the street or posting it publicly on a board so that everyone can see it. And if you do that for sensitive software, you can imagine everyone who sees this key can take it and enter your house, if it's your house key. And that's an issue. But may you say, yeah, that's in some other software, and that's not Go related. And I'm sorry to tell you, no, that's not true. You also have crypto issues in Go software. For example, this issue was reported back in January this year, and was part of a password manager in Golang. So you can imagine having a vulnerability in there could mean that attackers perhaps can get your credentials or your passwords stored in this password manager, which is a kind of issue. So this vulnerability itself had a medium severity, but still, I think, and it's also fixed because it should be avoided. So why this one happened? It was because they only used a part of random salt, which is like, imagine it like some randomness you're putting to your primitives, and they don't use it fully, but only used a part. So they only used it half, which led to this vulnerability. So perhaps you say, yeah, There are some misuses, and she looked them up, and that are the only one. No, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to tell you that it's not true. So at least studies suggest this. So there were studies which were conducted in academia, mostly on Android apps, so Java, and also some in industry, who show that between 60 to 69% of the applications have at least one kind of crypto misuse, meaning that of, I don't know, X crypto usages, at least one was insecure. And I think this number is kind of alarming and also a bit of demotivating, depressing, to be honest. And yeah. And today, and the 6 misuses presented in one of the first papers, and which I have seen discussed a lot, and which are also related to the 2 real fails I have shown you at the beginning, are the following. So you shouldn't use a specific mode. Mode what? Okay. Okay, something about an EV. No clue what is this. Okay, constant encryption keys. We had that. You also shouldn't use constant salts. Then they talk something about iterations. Oof. And you shouldn't seed something with secure random. Okay, that sounds a bit complicated if you have never heard about it. Must admit, and we are looking a bit into all these in the next few minutes. So, ECB mode is a plug mode. So, when you encrypt a message, you have to split this message into multiple blocks. And to combine the blocks, you have a mode. In this case, the ECB mode, take each blocks, encrypt it, and go to the next block and encrypt it. And at this, the same part of the message or the same message will always look the same. That's also the reason why these beautiful party gushers look kind of all the same. You can see that there was a gopher party ongoing, and your chef knows, or your boss, sorry, it's a false friend in German, sees that you were on a party and not working. So that's not good. And back to ECB, and that happens because each block is taken, encrypted, and then the next block is taken. I mean, of course, don't see the image completely, but do you see enough to get the image or have the possibility to further attack this? So now some folks, geniuses, have created another mode, and they thought, like, if we have to combine these or change these blocks, we just put a random block in front of it and combine the first block with this random block, and then we get the encrypted block and combine this first encrypted block with the next encrypted block, so that we not come into the failure of before. Yeah, but this assumption only holds if you change your first random block. If you don't change it, you see, okay, you don't see that good in this image, I'm sorry. But if it's always the same at the beginning, you don't win much. Now, talking a bit about a constant encryption key. As mentioned, you actually want that your message is a secret, but if you put your key in some GitHub repo or somehow in public, somehow your message is open, because people who see your key can also encrypt it. And that's not good. That was kind of a lot, and I tried to ignore all the heavy mathematics behind crypto, and now the reminder tree. So a constant salt, and if your salt is constant, the effect is similar to having no constant. And yeah, as discussed, if you have some primitive, or if you want to do some randomness into it, such that your data isn't predictable anymore, and you have it constant, it's kind of like putting your key on a place or your salt in a place where everyone can see it and just has to know where it is. For the 1,000 iterations for password-based encryption, the rule is very simple, kind of. For the password-based encryption, you need several rounds to be secure. And for now, a number which is kind of agreed by experts on, which you should have at least 1,000. And thus having an iteration count of, I think, 19, as I have seen this week in some code, simply isn't enough to be secure. So what the 1,000 is doing, it's just increasing the computing cost for an attack. And that's enough if you increase it from 19 to 1,000 for at least normal applications. And again, we have a static seed as like a constant seed. Secure random. If you want to generate random in computers, you often have to feed a seed into it. And if you always put the same constant into it, or if you're random, or it will result in kind of the same mesh outputs. And thus, countererasure, it results in a constant key again. Now, that was kind of a lot, and I hope I don't have lost you all. And these misuses were from, I say, mostly Java, or at least they're frequently discussed in Java. Okay. I mean, the idea behind it, they also apply to other languages. And I wondered, okay, is Go doing a better job on this than Java? Because all of the misuses I discussed are really easy to misuse because of the design of the JCA. Some of these decisions are due to legacy because Java is very old, but that also shouldn't apply to Go because Go is newer. So I looked into it. And yeah, so first I only looked into the Go standard library. The two misuses for password-based encryption are not covered by the standard library, but Go has very good libraries to doing this job. But because of the limited time, I only looked into the standard library. So what's really cool about Go, the ECB mode, the one with these cool gopher party images, these are not allowed in Go because you can't use them. They are simply not implemented. I repeat, they are not implemented. And there were also discussions where people ask, hey, can we have ECB mode because I need it for this and this reason? And the answer was no. If you really need it and know what you do, you can implement it by yourself. And if you can't do it, keep your fingers away. And even then, keep your fingers away, kind of. And then in Java, you can feed a seed into secure random. That's something which you can't also do in Go, because you simply call the function and you don't have to care about how to seed it for you. The API is doing this job for you, which is, I think, kind of cool, isn't it? And then, yeah, checking for non-constant encryption keys and non-random EVs. It is kind of the same because it's a constant implemented in your program. For CBC encryption is something which is not covered by the library, which is okay, but you can cover it with analysis. Now, that was a bit. And now I want to share 2 code examples on how to do it right in Go. I've talked a lot about how to do it not right and tried to give you a first impression of some crypto stuff and how you can fail on it and why it's difficult to do it. Now I want to show you right ones. So to create a secure random number, the first and the important thing is check that you have imported the crypto.run and not math.run, because these 2 packages are different. Crypto.run or /run ensures you that you get the crypto random number generator and not a mathematical random number generator, which has not that high standards on it. And if you would use the math.run, you wouldn't get secure random numbers, at least to cryptographic standards. And then the remainder is kind of straightforward. To get a new random number of length, you simply have to pass the byte in which you want to have the random numbers. Oh, not, sorry, this is a sort of function. And you simply create an array of your length, byte array. Then you read from the cryptographic source, which is rand.reader.random. And then you can return it. No. Oh, sorry, I have to take a nip. Now, encryption. I've talked a lot about modes which you shouldn't use or with which you should be careful. In this example, we will use another mode. Keep this in mind and use it if possible, which is the Gcm mode. And this is cool because it allows you or enables you that you have confidentiality and authentication of your messages. How you do this in Java, in Go, sorry. You first create a block and create a new cipher block, which you do with IS new cipher, and you pass your key, which is a byte array. Then you choose GCM as your block mode. As I mentioned, use this. Don't use any of the block modes I mentioned before, except you have to use them because it's some companies restriction or you have to follow some standards. And that's as simple as calling cipher.new GCM and pass your block into it. And then you get a new GCM. Of course, you can get an error, but let's assume we have no error. Then we create a random nonce. We create the random nonce in the same way as before. We create the byte array with the size of our GCM nonce. And then we call io.readFill with rand.reader and the byte array we created. With this, we have the random nonce. And then we can call gcm.seal with our nonce and the plaintext. And this will encrypt our plaintext, which is, I think, also kind of forward. It's just 4 simple steps, and most of the code is due to handling your errors. Now, if you're interested in this, you can ask your question now. You can also take care of or use existing resources. There is one, I think, really cool repository called CryptoPaster, which has Go code about secure implementations, like also GCM example. A Slack channel, which I found kind of cool, which is called Crypto. You can find a lot of people posting crazy and simple and pragmatic Go stuff, crypto related stuff there, and also non-Go related. Very interesting. And from what I have seen, the questions there are always answered very good, and there are very good discussions. And I give a hint to it. You have the API on the one hand, which can help you prevent misuses. And I think the Go crypto API is already doing a great job into it. But you can also make use of static analysis to identify your misuses. And GoSec is one of these linters analyses. And beside these existing awesome resources, you can also check out the examples, the 2 code examples, and the slide deck in my repo talk. And with that, I want to finish my talk. And I want to repeat to you, don't use ECB if you don't want your party pictures from last weekend to be shown to your boss. Generating new random and also encrypting with GCM in Go is very simple. It's just a few lines of code. And the Go standard library is doing a great job in helping you to prevent some of the crypto misuses array. Thanks for your attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful talk. I'm just going to be having a quick look in our various channels. I had pinged that last slide in our glorious GoGals Scopus Slack channel. For those of you following along on YouTube, we will be posting these videos on this YouTube channel afterwards, and we'll add some resources to the descriptions as we share them. So thank you so much, Anna. Really appreciate you joining us and giving such a wonderfully interesting talk. Let me see. Our next kind of portion is going to be a panel. So I'm just going to add our lovely panelists. And then we will dive in. There we go, perfect panelists. We go, let me just in this so that we have a lovely gallery view so we can see everyone. Awesome. Let's see. Great, cool. Let's dive in. So welcome everyone. This is going to be a panel discussion with Jessica Green, Natalie Pistolovich, and Rona Steinberg. They're all glorious Gophers based in Berlin, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about the Berlin Go scene, the community, different use cases of Go, as well as some unexplored avenues to drive development in Go. But before we dive in, I'm just going to take a moment to introduce our three wonderful women joining us. Firstly, we have Natalie. Natalie is a very good question asker, so she might be jumping in with a few questions as we have this chat. She's also a learner, a Google developer expert for Go, an OpenAI ambassador, a public speaker, and a sailor. She started as a hardware developer at Intel, then moved to Berlin and turned to software engineering developing in Go. Then she moved to Kenya to be a co-founder of a mobile startup, which was, in her words, a beautiful failure. Then she came back to Berlin to be an engineering manager, and now she's a lead developer advocate at the database company Aerospike. In her free time, she organizes conferences such as GopherCon Europe, Cloud9, which is an SRE DevOps conference, Hey AI, and B-Side Berlin, which is a security conference. She's also part of the Berlin chapter of the Go and Women Tech Makers user groups. Her hobbies include sailing, growing plants, and wondering if there's life on Mars. Welcome, Natalie. Very excited to have you.
Thank you, Angelica. It's great to be here.
Second up, we have Rona, who after 20 years in tech knows that she is the sum of the opportunities that were given to her, which is why she wants everyone to hire juniors, because in her words, juniors are just seniors in the making. She's a senior software developer at Delivery Hero, a Google developer expert for Go, a Women Who Go organizer, a diversity scholarship distributor, and a Go Time Unpopular Opinion Hall of Famer. She enjoys solving problems and waiting anxiously to go back to scuba diving when the pandemic ends. Welcome, Rona. Next up, we have Jessica, who, having explored a career as a camera assistant in film and television and as a specialty coffee roaster and barista, she made the decision to retrain in 2017 and add programming to her skill set. She joined the team at Ecosia, the search engine that plants trees, in 2018 to use her new skills to help plant trees globally. She's self-taught and community-taught developer, and she organizes events and is involved in initiatives that support women and gender minorities in making the move into tech. Wonderful to have you, Jessica. I'm very excited you're part of this.
Thanks for having us.
So we're going to dive right in. So you're all in the Berlin Go community. I'm interested to hear, does Berlin have something to do with you all moving into Go and becoming Gophers? Or was that just kind of serendipity and coincidence? Maybe Rona, I could turn to you first.
Well, the second that I moved to Berlin, I also became a Gopher. So I guess for me, that kind of makes sense. As it turns out, the organizer then, or co-organizer, Natalie's co-organizer of GDG Golang Berlin, convinced my boss, who was a colleague of mine, convinced my boss that Go is the only thing worth doing. I had other opinions and basically had a very interesting conversation with my manager, where he told me, well, you know, that time that I told you that you can select whatever technology that you wanted for this project that you're starting, it meant you can select whatever you want as long as it's Go. And I was on my probation. so my choice was essentially made for me, and the rest is history. Here I am.
And how about you, Jessica? I'm interested, how did you become a Gopher? Was it also linked to your move to Berlin?
So for me, it wasn't linked to the move to Berlin because I was already in Berlin before I got into tech. But it was very much linked to the other glorious gals that go in this call. So I first found out about Go, or first discovered Go, through one of the Women Who Go meetups, which was the Ultimate Go by Bill Kennedy. I just did Ultimate Services, which was like stuck in my head. Both amazing workshops. And it was for me like that click moment of, I really like this and I want to get involved in it. And the community was incredibly supportive. Rona personally has been incredibly supportive. It was through Women Who Go meetup that I got introduced to the company where I now work. So for me, I don't know specifically if it was about Berlin, but it was certainly about the community in Berlin that got me to go.
Awesome. And Natalie, how did Go come into your world?
Definitely from the move to Berlin, or because of it. One of the company that I started working at told me that they are a Go shop. And if I want to work there, I can either go the path of being a developer, DevOps, or sysadmin. And alternatively, it's doing Go. So I went for Go. And at the time it was 2014 or 15. So at the time it was very early in the Go life, but they were already adopting it. Actually, they started with it 2013 or so, when Go was in the second year or so. And that's how I found myself doing Go. And from there, it was just, I was picking the companies by their Go stack.
I mean, I feel like you've all spoken about how the community in Berlin really helped either get you into it, or it was already existent and then you got pulled into working in Go. I'd love to hear whether you think there's something unique, special, different about the Go community in Berlin. And as I know, there's a rich culture globally of Gophers. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about your perspective on what is unique, or if there is something unique about the Go culture in Berlin. Rona?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I don't know necessarily about other communities in the world, but I do know that there is something that is interesting about Berlin, is that there are a lot of companies here with a PHP stack they're moving to Go. And I know that, for instance, where I come from Israel, not that much PHP. I don't think that I was ever poached for a PHP developer position, and here it's probably on a daily basis. Yeah, everybody's nodding because it's happened to them. Okay, so what I think happened is that it was kind of around a time where cloud computing, everybody was moving to microservices. Everybody was looking to reduce costs. Everybody was looking to, we say Go is fast. We say that Go is performant, but what we actually are saying that Go is cheap. That is the bottom line. So I think that is why Go is so strong in Berlin. I think that's why there's always this feeling that something is going on in Berlin around Go. Again, I don't have other communities to compare it to, but it definitely feels like a Berlin thing for me.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go.
I actually was thinking a lot about this question, and I think one of the things that does make Berlin Go scene special for Women Who Go specifically is that we have Rona, and the way that she teaches Go. Yeah, it's like, it really, every time I think about it and talk to other people, it really makes me appreciate more and more that style, because what we would do at Women Who Go meetups is have have a project that essentially has like fill in the blanks. So it's like failing tests, and then you need to fix it and make it work. And I think this is such a great way to learn like any language. But I think for Go, it works incredibly well. And I think there's a lot people could learn, like other communities could learn from this. So I do think that's something quite special that we have in Berlin.
I think that Go managed to catch here quite well in Berlin, because it used to be, at least before it became the tech hub that it is now, it was a hacky place. And a decade ago, when Go was released, this was a adopted one of the first user groups of Go was here in Berlin. It started in 2011, and it's a just group of people who like the language and just got together and started hacking together and doing things with the language. And they were the early adopters that were giving the feedback and were creating interesting things with it. And I think that is also some of the things that as those people matured and went to work in bigger companies or built their own companies or whatnot, they brought Go with them, and just because they were among the early adopters.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you all do specifically in Berlin in Go, both in terms of like what you do in your day-to-day job, but I know you're also, you know, as has been mentioned, very involved in the community and building the community and making it better. So perhaps I could jump to you first, Rona. What do you do at work? Do you use Go still in your day-to-day job? And would love to hear a little bit more about how you're involved in the Go community.
So at my workplace, a delivery hero, I make sure that alongside your food, you will also get your receipts. And well, and how we do this, we do it with Go. Right now, at the moment, for instance, I am deprecating a legacy system that is written in PHP also, yet another one, and moving it to Go. We work with we work on top of we work with microservices, event-based microservices, APIs, HTTP APIs, and a little bit of gRPC actually that has recently entered the company on top of AWS, Kubernetes, Terraform. Well, it's not on top of Terraform, using Terraform. Yeah, I think, well, if we're looking at tools that we're working on, a lot of the tools that we're working with, that we're using, were written in Go, which I feel like it drives the community forward. And I wanted to point something out that, you know, despite Go being really the #1 infrastructure as a service, platform as a service language, when you actually examine it, it wasn't necessarily the obvious choice. It wasn't necessarily, I remember people complaining about how locking a Go routine to a thread is very difficult and tedious, and, you know, a bunch of edge cases that the language does have, and yet they made it work, and they made it work very, very, very well. And I think, you know, it's a main driving force in the language, and it is very, very interesting also to see this sort of growth over time, and to see how we've changed how we do things because of those people.
I mean, speaking a little bit, a beat longer on that, you talked about how you've changed the use of Go. I mean, I'd love to hear maybe just a little bit more about the trends you've seen in terms of the use of Go, whether it be in your day-to-day or at your company more broadly.
So since there is one, I think, developer advocate here who is actually working on open source, and I think really, and she's been around this community, well, actually longer than me, a few months, but longer than me. I think she would be a very, very good person to refer that question to. So, Natalie.
Referred. Natalie, tell us.
I mean, what exactly are we asking?
I mean, what trends have you seen in terms of the use of Go? I'd love to hear more about kind of what you specifically work on, but I would say first, just as you've been in the Go community, as you've seen changes in the way people use Go, individuals, companies use Go, have there been any outstanding trends and changes in the use that you've observed?
So we're talking about the past.
Yes.
Past trends.
Yeah.
I was time traveling here. It was confusing. And yeah, Go started as a language of those people who were gathering together in hacker spaces and doing stuff for fun, right? And not just in Berlin, but also. And it got more mature. The users of the language became people with not 1-2 years experience, but 5 and more. 20 as some job descriptions ask, of course. And it also means that the language became more mature, and it means, or what it doesn't mean, but it happened that larger corporations adopted this language, and it comes with more stability, right? Now we're trying to be more careful not to break things, and the community is changing the character of itself. It's no longer just people who are doing it for fun, it's people whose boss told them to do that. And on the other side of all that, there's also an interesting trend that Go is becoming very much the tool to use, or the language to use for creating DevOps tools, right? It's not just for the web servers and applications and so on. It's also the language that Kubernetes is built in, and Docker is built in, and Jaeger and Prometheus, and so many DevOps tools are relying on it. So this is also a systems language, and that's another interesting trend.
So what do you do in Go? Tell us, what has been your experience? What are you working on in the Go community at the moment?
At work, what I do is, as Rana was hinting, I'm a developer advocate at Aerospike. Aerospike is a database company that is not written in Go, but it has a Go client, and the most starred client of the different 10 or 15 clients that we have is the Go one. So it helps me to pitch the focus on the language more, and the fact that the recent additions we were creating for that, for example, the Kubernetes operator and so on, also uses Go. That also helps me bring more focus on the language. An interesting place that we are in with Go is that a lot of the clients that we have who use Go are not yet using modules, or just recently migrated to that. So the client, in order not to break things off what the clients or users are actually doing with the database, the Go client was not supporting modules until very recently. So that's an interesting place to be, because it means it breaks the documentation, and most of the information you find online for the newer versions is not fully relevant. You have to kind of figure out how to do things with it to make it work for not having modules and so on. Yeah, those are interesting things that I'm doing at work with Go. And for fun, in my free time, I am working on a tool that explains Go code, not just Go code, but also Go code. Sorry for the buzzword, using AI. And it's basically, you give it a code snippet, and it gives you a paragraph that explains what it does. And maybe you as a product manager find it interesting. Who also likes
That's
code.
awesome. We have to chat more about that. That sounds amazing. I mean, also, for those of you attending who love hearing interesting people talking about interesting things, Natalie forgot to mention that she also has a rather big event coming up that is to do with the Go community, GoPicon Europe. So if you want to hear more wonderful women, as well as others who are not wonderful women but are still wonderful, I would very much encourage you to check out GoPicon Europe. I don't know whether, Natalie, you want to talk a little bit about that. I personally think it's worth a mention. I think it's a brilliant event that really helps build community, teach. I know you have some workshops going on as well, and you have this whole mentorship scheme going on. I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, it's happening next week, 26th, 7th, and 8th of August. And we start with a day of workshops. One of the workshop instructors just happens to be the previous speaker, Anna. And in addition to Anna's workshop about security, there are 2 additional workshops. One is mentored by Bill and is done in collaboration with Ian. And the other one is done by Johnny and organized and is co-organized or co-given with Kevin. You know Johnny and Bill, probably. You don't know yet Kevin and Ian, but you should go and check out the workshop descriptions. I think they're interesting people who you probably will be seeing around the Go community more. And yeah, second year that we're online. So thanks to Rona, who is heading our diversity scholarships, we get to have 50 people who received the diversity scholarship and will be joining us. And in comparison to whoever who's watching us, there's a sign language simultaneous translation, mirror and also non-mirrored. And we have, second year that this is online. So in addition to having more people that we managed to bring on board, we also bring a little more of our expertise and the fun things that we're doing, like a selfie booth and like a coloring pages. Thank you for asking about that.
That's awesome. Well, it's a great event, and I feel like I if it wasn't mentioned by you, I was gonna mention it.
Can I mention another interesting thing?
You can mention whatever you would like, Natalie.
So Angelica and me happen to be podcasters, hosts, how do you call that, on a very fun podcast about Go that is called Go Time. And it's also a channel in the Go First Slack, where you all have joined probably to follow the content of the stream. And it's happening on Tuesdays in evening European time and morning American time, but you can also hear the recordings at any other time that you feel like hearing. And every time it's a different topic and it's very interesting. And Angelica is a great host, not just here, but also at the podcast.
I appreciate that. I would also say, a side note, if any of you would like to speak or get involved on a podcast or in these kind of events or in GoForCon Europe, please, ping any or all of us. We are all involved in some way in that kind of thing. I feel like this has gone from a deep dive into the uses of Go to a community promo moment. So thank you so much. I would love to now hear a little bit more about our wonderful third panelist today, Jessica. What do you do in your day-to-day?
So in the day-to-day, it's mainly a little similar to what Rona was talking about. Like we use a lot of microservices, and we use Go. I feel like that decision was made in the company before I joined, but I feel it was like, a passion. Someone had a passion for Go and kind of got it into the company, and that's only grown. We've since hired many really interesting Gofos, and I think really expanded upon our knowledge of Go in the company, which makes it a very exciting place to work. Something that we actually have in our legacy Go stack, because we have like a legacy Go stack and a newer stack, which Rona's pointed out to me a few times is very interesting and somewhat unusual, is that we're using templating for our server-side rendering. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you can do with the templates, and actually Women Who Go had this workshop around using Go templates, which was actually how I got first introduced to the company, Ecosia, where I now work. But yeah, since I kind of joined, we've been migrating away to that, because we've moved from like a monolith to this microservice architecture, and with that kind of built a front end that's more Node and Vue.js based. But yes, we're also running on Kubernetes, that also gets to touch a lot of these like kind of infrastructure tools that were mentioned before as well.
Awesome. I would love to hear a little bit about what Go is not great at. We've talked a lot about how you will use Go in your day-to-day, the things you like to do with it, but I'd love to hear kind of the areas in which maybe Go is not the ideal solution, or areas in which you wish kind of there was more use of Go. Maybe I can pass over to Rona on this one.
So the couple, so there are multiple things that I would like to see Go, sort of a bunch of communities that I would love to see Go integrated in are Internet of Things, communities, industries, entire industry, let's say, because I'm ambitious that way. So Internet of Things, machine learning, and well, AI, if we're going to use buzzwords. And so, you know, talking about stuff that is very interesting that people have done with Go that not a lot of us, and sorry, and yes, also obviously web. So what I found really interesting about what Ecosia was doing with server-side rendering of HTMLs was that, you know, for most people, when you go, you don't expect that from Go. You kind of expect that, you know, when you work with Python, when we work with Ruby, this Rails new that basically creates an entire website for you, a web app website for you with server-side rendering is great to start out with. And I wish more people had that experience with Go. And you know, in the past few years, like since Go WebAssembly was released, Go WASM, we see a lot of that as well. And we see people sort of playing with it, trying to create games with it, which is really, really interesting. So I would love to be able to, I would love to see front-end developers developing in Go, because they just could, you know, that would be amazing, right? And lastly, like if we're talking about stuff that is interesting that people have been doing with Go, I will never forget. So the first GopherCon Europe was in Iceland. And I was so head deep in the diversity scholarships. I had no idea about the lineup, what the talks are going to be. And then somebody got up on stage and talked about how to render fake objects into an image using Go. And Nelly informs me that that was Hunter Loftus. I'm hoping that I am pronouncing his name correctly. Yes, I'm getting a yes, so that's good. And I'm not going to get into that because I will never do this talk justice. Just, you can find it on YouTube. So just go and do it. Worth every second. Especially because the entire thing started, my favorite thing started with a hello world, which is how all applications should start, with a simple hello world. That is when you know that you have something in your hand. So yeah, that is for me. I get really excited about the possibilities. Also, by the way, like this is why my workshops are built the way that they are. I go to different companies. We come up with different ideas and different challenges from topics that a company has worked with. So we get a lot of inspiration from the industry in our workshop, which is really, really nice. And I have to say that you know, I've been around this industry for a while, but I was blown away by what people actually do with Go, but also what people actually do, which is kind of, you know, it's insane. And really, if you look around you, you'll be amazed at what people actually do in their day-to-day.
And going off the back of that, I would love to hear maybe Natalie, some of the things you've kind of tried out in your free time, little mini apps you might have done, because I know you've done a few little fun ones that I'm sure would be interesting to chat about a little bit.
It's something that Go is not necessarily used for.
Yeah, that you've just tried it out and found it was fun to experiment with, but maybe you found yourself surprised at how it was in fact applicable.
The Go mobile thing support library, call it how you wish. So it lives under the X folder, which means full disclosure, this is starting as an experimental thing. This is not promised to be stable, no promises, it's just people trying around. And I took those experiments of those people and tried, or had an idea of building an app, and it doesn't work. I managed to go as far as create something that a screen that has a shape that just moves around and changes colors. It touches the edges of the screen, which is pretty much following the demo example. I think I managed to compile it for Android, and it didn't work for iOS at all. And I gave talk about that and on how I had plans for that and how that did not work out in Golang UK 2017, I think. And also one of the less good talks that I gave, I think. Very proud of good talks that I'm giving and very proud of not great talks that I'm giving. If anybody needs a motivation to go and give a talk and live with the fact that you have good and bad talks of you out there, just go there, watch that, laugh at me, tell me later. We can laugh about that together. But also hear what how I experimented with it and what I was thinking to do about that. And I think it never picked up, and that's fine. Go is great for all sorts of things, like web, like systems, and not great for other things like mobile.
I mean, I think that's really interesting. I would love to hear, maybe Jessica, have you had any instances where you've experimented with Go and found that it didn't work and you just kind of were like, oh God, like this didn't work at all? Or you kind of experimented, tried it out and found, again, to your surprise, like, yeah, I could make this work. I didn't realize that this could be used in this way, but this is fun.
I think every time I like play around with Go, outside of work, no, inside of work also, actually, it makes me like realize how much more there is than like what I'm using it for on a daily basis, which is very exciting, but also kind of like slightly intimidating at the same time. Like one of the first projects I worked on, I think one of the first talks that I gave was around this toy project where I was taking tweets that I was sending out for the 100 Days of Code challenge. And I was then trying to essentially reformat the tweets into Markdown to save them in a GitHub repo, because that's what you're supposed to do as like the homework of this challenge. And I wanted to automate it. And I think I got something working, but then someone in the audience had given me some really good tips around the templating library, actually, now that I think about it, that was just like so beyond what I had imagined I would be able to do myself. So I think like, yeah, my experience has mainly been this. One of the things that I really like tweaking with and would like to spend more time doing is the kind of microcontroller area. So I really love the TinyGo and the GoBot things. We did a Women Who Go workshop on this as well, which was a few years ago now. And I think it's actually been expanded upon a lot, but I haven't had that much free time, shockingly, of late to get more into it, but I would love to explore this area more.
That's awesome. I mean, do you feel like there have been certain like projects or certain places, resources that you've used when you've been diving into TinyGo that you found especially useful? I mean, it's certainly an area like I think is fascinating and I would love to dive into, that we can maybe share with those listening. You can ping it in the Gopher Slack.
Yeah, I can definitely send some links in the Gopher chat. I mean, for me, it's like I just want to like make lights, LEDs, blink. Like I'm already amazed by that, but like I kind of like all the home automation stuff, and a lot of that I have seen done with more like Python. So I think it's like really cool to have the option to be able to do that in Go as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Well, we've kind of talked about what we've seen in the past. We talked about what you're doing now. I'd love to now turn to the future. Like, what do you think we should look to be using Go more in going forward? What do you think? How do you think the use of Go in the Go community is going to change looking forward? I will not hold you accountable to anything you say. This is your personal views, what you think. Maybe Rona, I'll kick it over to you. What are your predictions for the future?
Well, as all three of you know, I challenged Ron Evans, who is behind GoCV, for computer vision and GoBot, and I think 1 million devices in support in TinyGo to train a zombie bot to eat brains, because the apocalypse should start from bored gophers. So remember where you heard it first. So that is
almost
my
like Furby.
answer.
It's almost like Furbies.
I'm sorry, you were expecting a serious answer, weren't you?
No, that was great. I mean, I can just imagine these. Well, I have in my mind these robotic zombies crawling around the streets and freaking everyone out. And then
It would be
secretly there's
amazing.
like a gopher inside.
It would be amazing. And we will alert the community to go to a desert island somewhere so that, you know, we're all safe. But yeah. I
gophers
think
are safe.
this is a good ending. It's way better than a pandemic, sure. So
For sure. How about you, Jessica? Are there areas that you would love to see Go expand into that you're not maybe seeing at the moment?
I think one of the things that interests me, and I know like it doesn't only interest me, I think both Natalie and Rona are interested in it, and know Rona and I specifically have also spoken a lot about it, but it ties really well into Natalie's project that she mentioned earlier, is around like teaching Go and learning Go and having tooling around making Go easier to understand. So I do see like there's a lot more possibility for maybe like boot camps built around Go, or even in the like school age range, where, you know, at the moment there's other languages taught, Golang could potentially have space there. Yesterday I was listening to the like panel discussion that had Steve Francia in it, and he was mentioning that this is something the Go team are actually working on around documentation and learning tools. So I think that's kind of really cool that the Go team are actually also working on that, because I think that's something that we within our community also on that micro level are trying to do. And the other thing I thought is quite interesting space where I've not really seen Go much is like the digital art space. So like kind of seen a lot of stuff with the coding and DJing, but it's been predominantly like JavaScript or Python, or like visual arts. I think net art, you know, going back to the templates, there could be like, and this talk that you shared, Rona, that looks amazing. I think there could be, you know, some real creativity points where Go isn't expected, but could be really good to see it there.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of Go and art, there is a very interesting talk coming up in GopherCon Europe by Preslav. I'm sharing the link to him, to the tweet that he made about that in the Slack channel. And he is creating art with Go. And he's creating a pretty art, like abstract and interesting. I find it really cool. So I love this prediction of yours, Jessica. I absolutely hope it will go that way.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
I mean, Natalie, any predictions?
I mean, a lot has been said, but an interesting thing that I learned is that SpaceX is using Go. So I don't know the name of the field. Like space engineering is not exactly that, but space development, something like this, whatever it will be named in the upcoming years. There is a place for Go there among all the other languages, definitely, because it's fast and it's reliable. And I hope to go to space.
Maybe that's something you can, your next move in your vast career journey, maybe into space travel. That would be awesome.
Hopefully.
So I feel like in these strange times that we're still living in, I can't not ask about this weird and pandemic that we're currently going through and have been going through for the last year and a half. I would love to hear a little bit about how you've seen this kind of remote global pandemic affecting the Go community, the work you're doing, how it's affected like open source contribution, how has it affected like connecting with your fellow Gophers? Because I mean, speaking just personally, I feel like there's been a lot of pluses in that I've definitely interacted more with my Gophers in other areas. I'm based in New York. I used to be I would do a lot of global reach out, but mostly my Go community was in New York. Now I find myself, given that we're all living in a remote world, interacting a lot more with the global Go community. But obviously there's also a detrimental aspect of that. I really loved kind of getting in a room, sitting together and like hacking together some like weird game or some weird little solution together. And there was real value in physically being in the room with other gophers, especially meetups as well. I kind of miss just hugging people. So I would love to hear how you found this has affected either yourself or the work you're doing in the Go community. Maybe Rona could pass over to you.
So February, well, was it last year? So hard to tell. Was our last meetup, and I made a point to hug everyone because I kind of had a pretty decent idea. It was very late in February. I had a pretty decent idea that there is not going to be one for a while. Just didn't expect it to be that while. So that was kind of a shock. But I think so. There are two things that I see. So for us, for instance, the in-person. So one of the goals of Women Who Go is not to be there just for existing gophers, but ideally is to increase the community, because we don't want to just we want to, if we want to change the makeup of the community, we have to bring Go to people who wouldn't necessarily learn it otherwise. And so that is actually why I came up with this workshop format. It was with a very clear goal to be able to teach people as you usually, like, I learned most of what I know, I learned in the industry. I love how, in job interviews, everybody always asks me like, what books I've read. All honesty, everything, most of the important things that I've actually learned that one would want to hire me to do is stuff that I learned at work, as most people do. It is when you put something, there is no parallel to putting something in production. And I want to give that experience to people who don't know anything about Go, that they can go away with something that they have learned, that they know how to do end to end, and in any kind of setup. And this is very, very hard to do remotely. However, I do see that certain communities, such as Natalie's, are flourishing. So I'm going to give her the stage. I will say this. There is an end. We will be coming back. We will be stronger than ever. So just you wait. I really, really hope to bring these workshops back. And we'll see. Maybe we will have more remote people. So Natalie, maybe you want to explain what you did with your meetup group.
Rona is doing a lot of hard work towards each meetup in creating all the content for the attendees and then going around and explaining it. Our meetup, the Go user group, the not Women Who Go user group, is a lot less work. And it's a lot easier on the organizer. So it's completely unfair comparison in the work, in the preparation, in the effort of creating it, and in the value that the attendees get. The Go user group is just 2 talks every month. We have a regular date, so it's always the second Wednesday of the month, always 2 talks, always between them there is an open mic session where you can tell us that you're looking for a job, looking to hire your colleagues when Parallel Team or so is hiring, or you're looking for a project, or you're looking for a project to contribute to, or something like this, but you have 20 seconds to speak about Go, whatever you want, and 2 talks by other people. And now that we made this only online, many people are able to join. And because evening in Europe is night in most bigger parts of Asia, let's say, and morning in bigger parts of the US. It's a very convenient time for most of the globe to join. And making this a regular thing is also very helpful. So I started being an organizer at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And since then, we've been meeting once a month. And even when the pandemic started, we just said we're moving to online, and then you can see in the description that we say until spring, until summer, until next year, until following spring, probably until summer, maybe until the end of 21, but we still do the same thing in a, you can laugh that this is a very German thing to do, but it works, it's convenient for people, and we are happy when we have people like Rana and Jessica join, and we would love for everybody to join. And next event is in June, it's very soon.
I mean, thinking about, I mean, you've kind of clearly, Rona and Natalie, been able to adapt to this in what seems like a successful fashion, despite the difficulties. I would love to hear, Jessica, how you found it, but also how you've kind of stayed excited, stayed motivated. I know, especially, I mean, everyone I'm sure is dealing with, you know, burnout, dealing with lack of motivation. It's a very weird, you know, emotionally and psychologically draining time, but especially for those, I would say, like newbies coming in, trying to learn on that, and who are on that kind of upwards trajectory learning curve. Like, it's already difficult to motivate yourself when you're, you know, learning something new in technology. I mean, how do you stay motivated with that extra layer of difficulty in the environment we're living in?
I mean, I feel very lucky that I wasn't transitioning into tech in the last year, to be honest, and that it had happened just before then for me. A lot of the folks that I speak to, that it was a very different experience of not being able to meet people in person and to really get that connection, because it's quite intimidating going to groups. And like, you know, there's also a reason why women who go and the other groups aimed at like gender minorities exist, is because a lot of these groups are predominantly one group of people, and that makes it even more intimidating. And I think online there's something about it where you can hide a little bit, which is a benefit, but at the same time, because you're not visible in that way, it's very hard for people to reach out to you and offer support where you need it. I really like the GoBridge mentorship scheme that kind of started last year, as far as I remember. I didn't join that scheme as a mentor, but I did start working with someone this year, and I would very much say working with them because I've learned as much from her as she probably has learned from me. But that experience has been really amazing, because I think one-on-one, it's been a lot easier to just kind of build the trust and build the relationship, and that's what you really need. And I think that is just very difficult to do over a video camera, to be honest, especially in a group. The platforms we have are very good, but I haven't found a platform yet that really recreated that being in the room with people.
For sure. Well, we regrettably have come to time for our wonderful Women Who Go panel. I wish I could talk to you for another few hours. This has been wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And obviously for those watching, these are three, I hope, as you've seen, very welcoming, lovely ladies. Do feel free to, you know, tweet them, at them in Go for Slack, reach out to them if you want to get involved in any of the wonderful things that they've mentioned, or you just want to chat to them because they are just wonderful human beings. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your evenings.
Thanks, Angelica.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Hiya, juniors.
Also, I am going to now pass back over to my lovely co-host, Wilken, to introduce our next wonderful woman. I can't hear you, Wilken. I wish I could.
Could you hear me now? Could you hear me now?
Yeah.
This is a phone test. Now, I will say great panel. I had to step away to pick up my daughter from school, but I listened to the whole thing. It was an amazing panel. So thank you for hosting it, for moderating it, Angelica. Thank you for all our panelists. So great stuff. Before getting into our next talk, Thalak, who has just joined us. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say once again, thank you to everyone for sticking with us, for joining in. And most importantly, thank you to our speakers for embracing us today. So without further ado, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Thalak, who was going to be talking about illustrating the simplicity of testing in Go and how one could quickly write unit tests by using the standard packages like testing, HTTP tests, and using things like HTTP testing to minimize third-party dependencies. Thalak, again, thank you and welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Just give me a moment to share my screen.
I'm sorry if that was like a little rush. I just feel like I just ran upstairs to jump back on the mic. So sorry, no, there's no rush.
Is there a way that you could share one of your screen? Because I think I'm having trouble. I've been using only Meet so far.
Is your I'm happy to share. Is it online? Anything?
I can share it with Angelica.
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. I'm going to share it to your New York Times email.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I'll
Okay,
just bring it up now.
Okay, just sent it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. No worries. And then if you just, I feel like I know the rough flow of your presentation, but if you just want to say like next slide and I can
Okay,
ping it over.
good. Yeah, thank you.
Of course, let me just grab it up. There we go. Full screen. Let's see. And we switch over. There we go. Can you see?
All right, yes, I can.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, so hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Tilak Subramanian. Today, I would like to talk about simplicity of testing using Go language. Through this talk, I would like to share my experience of having done test automation in other languages like Java, JavaScript, and I want to compare it to what it takes to write automated tests using Go language. Okay, so with that, this is what I'll be covering today. I will talk about how you can write and execute tests using Go language, and I'll briefly compare it to Java. And I will also tell you what kind of support Go programming language provides to write tests beyond unit tests. And in the end, I'll wrap it up with a short takeaway. And we'll have 5 to 10 minutes in the end for any question and answers that you have. So we'll have a Q&A at the end. So please make a note of your questions and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. With that, again, my name is Tilak Subramanian. I am an engineer in New York Times. In New York Times, I'm in a team called Developer Platforms within Delivery Engineering. My team is primarily responsible for CI/CD tooling and general dev tooling. Currently, I'm leading an internal dev tooling project. Prior to joining New York Times, I have managed teams responsible for test automation and CI/CD in general. When I say CI/CD, I'm talking about tooling related to SEM, Artifactory, Jenkins, and also helping developers build their pipelines and also helping developers to debug their pipelines. So that has been my area of focus since the past decade until now. All right, so with that, we will get to the core of the presentation. So if you have done test automation in other languages like Java or frameworks could ring a bell. For example, in Java, you could have used a framework called JUnit or TestNG. When you write unit tests, mocking is a very crucial thing. And you could have used a framework called Mockito or PowerMock. And if you want to mock external APIs, you could have used WireMock. And for code coverage in particular, you could have used something called Jacoco to generate the code coverage reports, and you could have used a tool called SonarQube to view those code coverage reports. And when you write test, I'm sure you are familiar with test assertion. So in Java, I've listed a couple of popular assertion libraries like Hamcrest and Assertion. So you could have used these things. Typically, when you want to run your unit test, or in general, when you want, you would use a build framework like Maven when you want to build and create your package. So through Maven is how you would typically run your test. So this is all something related to unit tests. But when you want to write API test for your REST API test, Rest Assured is one of the popular testing framework that's out there in the Java community. So let's see what it takes now to write automated test in Go. Yes, you're right. All it takes to write automated test in Go is just the Go programming language. I'll give you the details as to what kind of support the programming language provides. But out of the box, the Go programming language supports everything that you need to write automated tests. It is true that it doesn't provide in-depth support for assertion libraries and frameworks that we saw in the other languages, but that's something that was done intentionally by the Go community and Go developers, because you don't need another framework to do your test assertions. You could have simple Go code, if-else statements, and write your test reporting, whether your test pass or fail. Because your test code is nothing different from regular Go code, and that's a very common, that's a Go philosophy, and I completely agree to that. Okay, so in this section, we'll talk about what it takes to write tests in Go. So I will be briefly covering some of the features that the Go language provides. Next slide. All right, so support for testing through Go standard library is provided by a package called testing. So in order to write automated tests in Go, all you need to do is to follow 3 simple rules. First rule is you need to have your test file called hello_test as an example that I've given. You need to suffix _test to the name of your test file. The second rule is your test needs to start with the word test followed by a capital letter and the name of your test. In the example that I've given on the right, you can see I have 2 tests, test hello and test world. And the third rule is your test needs to take a parameter of type pointer to testing.t. Testing.t is what enables, this is a type that provides all the methods that you need for your test reports. I'll briefly talk about some of the methods that it provides, but this is all you need to get started with your automated test. Now you can ask that if you've used a framework called Maven, even Maven follows a philosophy like this. Maven goes by a famous philosophy called convention over configuration. So in Maven, if you have all your tests under a directory called source test Java, it automatically picks all the test files, and provided your test suite starts with the name test, just like how Go requires the test suite to follow _test philosophy, and it picks all the tests within the test file and it executes them. But you don't need a framework like Maven to write your test or run your test. That's something provided out of the box by the Go programming language itself. And if you are familiar with automated tests, having some test setup and teardown is very common before you actually execute your test. So that's something you typically accomplish using a unit testing framework like TestNG or JUnit. And in Go, you don't need anything like that. For example, if you're familiar with JUnit, there are 2 kinds of setup and teardown you can do. One is something that you do at the beginning of the test suite, but there's also another kind of setup that you can do before execution of each of a single test. So in this example, I have shown this test setup and teardown only at the suite level. For example, hello_test as a test suite, and I have a test main, which is something that will run before the execution of my 2 tests, which is test hello and test world. I will show you in the next slide as to how you can have test setup and tear down at the test level, which is relates to your before test and after test annotation if you're familiar with JUnit. So in this example, test main is equivalent of your before and after annotation in JUnit. And I will talk about in the next slide as to how you can set up and tear down before executing a single test. So you can see that you don't need a framework again, JUnit, to do setup and tear down. Test main is sufficient. That's something that's given to you out of the box by Go programming language itself. There are other frameworks in the Go community like Testify. If you're used to writing tests like in a annotation fashion, like how JUnit does. But in my experience, I didn't have a need to use those frameworks, and this has been working beautifully for us. So we haven't used any external framework. The third point that I want to talk about is, I know I briefly touched upon this at the beginning of my talk, that Go doesn't have any support for assertions. And that's something that was done intentionally. Because like I mentioned before, test code is nothing different from your regular Go code. So you don't need a new assertion library for you to report whether your test has passed or failed. You can use simple if-else logic, and you can use some of the methods that's provided by this testing.t type. You can look at the Go documentation, which provides detailed explanation of all the methods that's being provided by this T type. Some of the methods that you could use for reporting your test pass of error is a function that this testing package T type provides. And there's another method called fatal, where if you want to just abruptly end your test case because something crucial happened, for example, that's something like when you set up something and your setup actually failed. If your setup failed, there's no need or point in running your test. So that's when you want to abruptly end your test suite. So that's a use case for fatal. And another useful method is error. So error is something you can use when you just want to log an error, but you still want to continue executing the rest of the test suite. So these are a couple of useful methods that are available in this pointer testing.t object. Again, Go documentation is great for the testing package and in general for all the documentation, so you can get more information about these. So with these assertions being part, so lack of assertions in Go language is actually not a problem at all. There are, again, other frameworks that are popular in Go community. One is Testify, especially the require methods and Testify. That's something you can use if you're comfortable with using assertion rather than writing your own Go code. So there are a few other features that I want to highlight that are part of the testing package. So one such feature is a nested test or subtest. So in this example, you can see I have one high-level test called test table driven, but within the for loop, I have another test called t.run. I have only one test subtest in this example, but you could have multiple subtests. For example, I could have another t.run subtest. The reason for when a subtest would be helpful to you is when you want to organize your related test in a single high-level test. So for example, you could test an API and you could have multiple use cases that you want to test against the API. So in that case, nested test is something that you could think about. The other cool feature that I want to highlight here is the table-driven test pattern that this test is illustrating. So this is similar to your parameterized test in JUnit. So if you have used JUnit, you could remember the parameterized annotation that you need to do if you want to have single tests and you want to pass multiple parameters to test a single test. Again, there's no need for all those annotations or frameworks. And table-driven testing is nothing fancy. It's, again, simple Go code. It's simple, but yet powerful. That will help you accomplish what you need. So in this example, I have one single test, but I want to test my single test against 3 parameter set. So I have a slice of struct, which has the input parameters. First is the name of the test, and then I have a couple of test parameters that I'm passing, and then I'm running a single test against these three input set. So this is very powerful because it clearly explains what you're trying to do, and you don't need any of those fancy annotation if you're coming from a programming language like Java using frameworks like JUnit. The third feature that I want to illustrate here is parallel. Tests by default run sequentially. So if you want to run your test in parallel, which is something that you would want if you want to reduce your test execution time in the pipeline, so you can push out your features faster. So that could be done by just calling this parallel method in this type object that I've been talking about in testing package. So this lets you run all the tests in parallel. So in this case, the three tests that's going to run in the for loop, they're going to run parallelly. So until all these subtests finish, the top level test table driven will not return. So you can see how easily you can run parallel tests just by calling this method without doing any additional work. So I think these are very important features and also very simple to use. So you can see how different writing automated tests in Go language is compared to other languages. The next topic that I would like to touch upon is mocking. I'm sure mocking is something you would have heard about if you have written unit tests. When you're writing a unit test, you want to mock other modules or packages that you're not testing or other external dependencies. There are multiple ways that you could write, that you could mock these modules. One way is you can write your own mocks. So in the example that I've shown, let's say your test interface is what you're trying to mock. This is the module that you don't want to test. Then you could write your own, you can implement the interface. For example, I have implemented that interface on an empty struct. So you can see that I have an empty struct. And then I've implemented the get and set methods. But I've also done it in a one level higher. You can see that I have made these methods get and set to return a variable like get mock and set mock instead of actually having the implementation there. Because this way you can control this variable as to what the value of this get mock and set mock should be. So you can test different use cases in your test. For example, you can also test your happy path in your code. You can also test error path in your code by adjusting this mock behavior. So this is very simple yet powerful to write your own mocks. But sometimes your interface could be huge, and writing mocks manually does not scale for you. Personally, I did not encounter this use case, but it's possible. So in that case, you can use a popular framework called GoMock. It's not part of the standard library, but it's still very popular in the Go community. And it also provides a mock generator tool where you don't have to manually write the mocks. You just run a command and it generates the mocks for you based on, and you mention the interface that you want to mock for. So that's done for you. And the third one that I want to talk about is a network called mock. So if you are, if you want to mock, your external APIs, then you could use this HTTP test package, which is not part of a testing package, but it's a sub package within net HTTP that you could use to mock your external API calls. HTTP test kind of provides two kinds of support. One is if you want to mock the server itself, when you want your test to focus only on the client side, you can do that. But if you want to test the handler itself on the server, then you can you just want to record the responses, then HTTP tests provide support for that as well. So you can you can go take a look at the Go documentation for HTTP tests. You will have some good examples that will illustrate the different use cases that I mentioned about. Okay, so far we have seen what it takes to write tests. Now let's briefly talk about what it takes to execute the test. So to execute test, if you've used in the other languages, automated test in other languages, like I said, you would predominantly run your test using a framework called Maven as part of the pipeline, but you don't need that. So to execute test in Go, all you need is the Go tool chain. So that's something that comes with you when you install Go language. Next slide, please. All right, so I have given some commands that will help that'll help you to understand how you can execute a test. As I mentioned, the Go tool chain it comes in with you when you install Go language. So in Go test, like you've guessed, is the way you can run to execute your test. So the first example I have is Go test, which by default will run all the test files which has _test at the current directory. But if you want to run test files that are not at the top level directory but also the internal directories, then you can use the next command, which is go test //. So go test has a bunch of test flags that's very helpful and handy. So if you want to understand what are the test flags available for you, you can use go help test flag command that will illustrate different test flags that's available for the test command. One such test flag is -v. By default, Go test output that you get is very terse, but if you want verbose output, then you can pass this test flag -v. And another test flag is -run. This gives you control as to which particular test that you want to run. So the first example shows you that I want to run a test that it uses regular expression. So any test that contains capital A, please run that for me. And the next command that shows, this is related to the nested test that I talked about. So this runs all the tests that's called A1 under a test called A. The other useful test flag that's part of test is cover profile. There are a bunch of other code coverage related test flags, but this one will help you to generate the code coverage report for you. The name of the file will be cover.out. Again, so this is all given to you out of the box, so you don't need a plugin like Jacoco to generate the report for you. So now that you have your report, you need to analyze it. Now let's see what kind of support Go gives you to do that. So for that, we have another tool called Go tool cover, which will help you analyze this coverage reports. There are different ways you can analyze a report. The first one, Go tool cover -func, and the name of the coverage report you just created will just display the code coverage in the terminal itself. But if you're used to a user interface and if you want to view the coverage report in a browser, then you can have the -html flag, which will nicely open a new browser for you, and it will give you analysis of how much code coverage you have through your test. So these are all really good test flags. So this Go tool cover completely replaces tools like Sonar Cubes, because you don't need another tool to display to analyze or understand your code coverage reports. So again, there are a bunch of other test flags that are useful. So please feel free to run this command, go help test flag, to get an understanding of what are the other possible test flags that you have available. The last feature is very important, which is build tags. So if you've used a framework like Maven, you run your test in different phases. For example, you run your unit test, and then you build your code, you deploy your services, and then you run your integration test. So these are all two different phases in Maven, and you could have used different plugin. For example, Maven's default unit test plugin is Surefire, and for integration test is Failsafe. But you don't need anything like that. So here, if you want to control when you want to run your test, you do it through something called build tags. So you generate your test and you create a build tag at the top of the file using this format that you need to follow, plus build and the name of the tag. And of course, it has to be commented out. When you do that, and then you pass the name of the tag that you just created. For example, in my example, I'm showing that the name of the build tag is build tag name. So it will run only if you specify this tags command or the tags flag to the test command. Otherwise, Go test will not pick up these test files. This is something you need, like I mentioned, when you want to run your API or integration test, because you want to make sure your services are up and running before you run your test. So all this is given to you, out of the box. You don't need other frameworks like in the fail-safe plugin that I mentioned to run integration test. Okay, so far I've been talking about support for unit tests. Now let me briefly touch upon what kind of tests beyond unit tests you can write using Go language. Next slide. Thank you. So Go, Go does, using the testing package, you could write integration tests and end-to-end tests as well. It is true that you need to write, you have to write minimal Go code, but it's still possible. So you don't have to depend on a testing framework like Rest Assured to test your APIs. That's what we have been doing, and it has worked well for us. We didn't have a need to depend on a framework. The other type of tests that I want to briefly touch upon, which are again part of the testing package, is benchmark and profiling and example test. You write benchmark tests when you want to analyze the performance of certain areas of your application. And profiling is something that you could use when you want to analyze how the system resources are being used. And the third type of test that you can write is example test, which is very interesting. And it's primarily used for documentation. So if you have analyzed or read Go docs, you could have seen a chunk of examples where you run a live example and see the results. That's actually being accomplished through this example test. So you can see that Go language does have support for not only for unit tests, but for other kind of tests as well. Okay, so with that, I am coming to the end of my talk. Having worked in Go for the past 1 year, I've been using Go for 1 year for the internal tools that I've been developing. It has completely resulted in a change of mindset for me. So my mindset is language first mode compared to learning a framework or a library. I'm not saying that you don't need a framework and library at all. Frameworks and library has its place and has its own use cases. For example, if you want to write Selenium or a UI-based test, then it makes sense to use a framework like Selenium. But for most part, Go testing package and all the helper packages that it provides to write automated tests is sufficient to write to get started with writing automated tests in Golang. Next slide, please. Because, like I said, Go philosophy is that Go test code is nothing different compared to regular Go code, and I firmly believe in that mantra. This has not only helped me in saving my brain power, but it also helped me tremendously to stay focused, and most of all, it has helped me to advance my career. And I think it will definitely apply to you as well. With that, I want to highlight that we have many open engineering positions in our company. So the link here will illustrate some positions. You can click that link and read more about it as the requirements are. But we also have a vibrant Go community within the organization, which welcomes new and experienced, and wherever your experience level is in Go programming language. So if you believe in New York Times mission and you want to support us, please come and work for us. So I think that's the end of my talk. I've listed some references here, which talks about Go documentation and other links that I've used to prepare this presentation. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for the time to hearing me out. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take it.
Awesome. Thank you, Thalak. I think that was a great presentation. I really like your key takeaways about, language first or frameworks. I think it's a good way to approach it, and also, the testing code being just regular Go. I always find my starting point of learning is going at the test and then refactor, going from there to actually learn the code base. So good stuff. I'm gonna check the channel for some questions, but I do have a question for you that came to mind. Is like, after learning Go, has there been any aha moments where you sort of gone back to some of the work you've done in the past to kind of revisit the testing? Maybe JavaScript or any other language that you work with?
I wish I could have done that, but no, I've been using primarily Go since I joined New York Times, and only in my previous company I've used Java and JavaScript. Typically, we pick the language based on what the application is using. For example, if my application is using Java, then we would use Java to write automated tests, even though that's not necessary. But if I have to go back and if I'm given the opportunity, yeah, definitely I would just use Go to write my test.
Great, thank you for that. One question that comes up is, what's your opinion about test coverage?
My opinion, okay, that's actually a very debatable topic, because not developers, are not happy with having code coverage. I think it's a must. That's something that you need to have as part of your pipeline, because it doesn't. It could hurt you if you make some changes and push your feature without having test. So that's something you could easily catch through this code coverage tooling. So this is a must, and you need to have it as part of the pipeline, but there needs to be a balance. Sometimes you could just write some test that doesn't make sense or add value. So it doesn't, so you need to be mindful as to what kind of test you're writing, and it has to provide value. So write tests that test the functionality. So I think that will provide value.
Great, thank you. I really like that response about being mindful and keeping balance in the test coverage.
Yes, it could hurt. I know many developers, it's a struggle actually, because my responsibility has slightly changed. I'm in DevOps, but when I was primarily focusing on test automation, it's always a fight with developers, like those folks who don't want to write tests, and then your pipeline is failing because you don't have enough tests to cover your code. So you have to find the balance.
I love it. Great, great talk. I think one question I have, maybe some of the other members in the audience would have. Can you share your slides? It would be okay to share your slides. Maybe we can go for Slack, a link for people to download or reference.
Yeah, sure. I have it shared with Angelica, but I'll check within my team if there any case any rules that I have to follow before I share the slides. And yes, I would be happy to share it with you and everyone.
Great. Awesome. Well, Thalak, again, thank you so much for joining us, for being a speaker here. Really happy to have you on. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Angelica and Wilken. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I think this is, well, Thalak, you're more than welcome to stick around. I think we're closing up shop today. So this is really want to say thank you again. First off and foremost to my co-host here, Angelica. Is always a pleasure doing these with you. So thanks for showing up and making this happen. And then want to say thank you to the world, all of our speakers, our attendees, and everyone who couldn't make it that is supporting us, and everyone that will wake up tomorrow morning excited to watch the event. It was an awesome event, lots of great stuff covered. I think we already got some content for the upcoming event, which will probably happen in July, if I'm not mistaken, Angelica.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, yeah, look out for that. Angelica, you want to take us home?
Sure. I mean, again, just thank you so much. I'm sure everyone watching will agree. We had a wonderful lineup of glorious Go Gals. As Wilken alluded to, keep an eye out for our next event. We do these events bi-monthly. They are always around this kind of timing, and we always will record and then add to our YouTube channel. If you're interested in speaking, please don't hesitate to reach out before we make any formal announcements. If you're interested, please just reach out. Any topic is welcome to do with technology and Go. So thank you everyone who attended, and we look forward to seeing you very soon, and enjoy your weekends.
Yeah, there we go. Right, it's Friday. Bye. Have a good weekend, everyone. And, okay. I just ended.